For 3,000 years, the Galactic Council believed they knew everything about warfare. They had cataloged every species, analyzed every combat doctrine, and predicted every possible tactical scenario. The humans were dismissed as a primitive species from a backwater world, too young, too emotional, too chaotic to pose any real threat. But when the Vorthack Imperium launched their final cleansing campaign, systematically exterminating entire civilizations with their seemingly unstoppable war machine, the Council's desperate plea for help reached a small blue planet on the galaxy's edge. What emerged from Earth's orbit wasn't just a fleet. It was a revelation that would rewrite every military textbook in the known universe. The enemy had never encountered anything like human warfare. They were about to learn why some species survive not by being the strongest or fastest, but by being the most dangerously unpredictable. Admiral Zexhai stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominion, watching the tactical display with growing unease. The Vorthack fleet stretched across space like a deadly constellation, 12,000 vessels of pure destruction. For 6 months, they had swept through the outer rim territories like a plague, leaving nothing but ash and silence in their wake. Report from the Kepler system announced his communications officer, her voice tight with barely controlled fear. The human colony of New Terra, it lasted exactly 47 minutes against the Vorthack advance force. The Admiral's mandibles clicked in frustration. Another world lost. Another billion lives extinguished. The Galactic Council's combined fleet had tried to stop them 3 times, and 3 times they had been utterly destroyed. The Vorthack war machines were simply too advanced, too numerous, too ruthless. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Council Emergency Assembly," the officer continued. "Priority Alpha." The hologram materialized in the center of the bridge. Chancellor Mordun of the Altarian Republic, his usually pristine robes stained with exhaustion and despair. Behind him, the great council chamber buzzed with the panicked chatter of representatives from across the galaxy. "Admiral Zexhai." The Chancellor's voice crackled through the transmission. "I'm afraid I have grave news. Our last defensive line at the Centauri Gate has fallen. The Vorthack are now advancing toward the core worlds. We estimate we have perhaps 2 weeks before they reach the Council homeworlds." The Admiral felt his heart sink. 2 weeks. After 3,000 years of peace, after building the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever known, it was all going to end in 2 weeks. However, the Chancellor continued, and something in his voice made the Admiral lean forward. "We may have one last option. Something unprecedented. The humans have responded to our distress call." "The humans?" Zexhai couldn't hide his skepticism. "Chancellor, with respect, they're barely spacefaring. Their technology is primitive by our standards. They've only had faster-than-light travel for what? 50 years? 63 years, corrected the Chancellor. "And, yes, their technology appears primitive. But, Admiral, desperate times call for desperate measures. They claim they can help. They're sending their entire battle fleet." The Admiral's tactical officer, a young crystalline named Veltar, looked up from his station. "Sir, I've been monitoring human communications. They're mobilizing everything they have. Military, civilian, merchant vessels, even some ships I can't properly classify. It's chaotic." "Chaotic is right," muttered the Admiral. He had studied human warfare during his time at the Galactic Military Academy. Emotional, unpredictable, often seemingly suicidal in their tactics. Nothing like the precise, calculated warfare of civilized species. "They've requested coordinates for the rally point," the Chancellor said. "Admiral, I know this seems unlikely, but we have no other options. The Vorthack have proven immune to every conventional tactic we've tried. Perhaps we need something unconventional." 3 days later, Admiral Zexhai found himself commanding the largest gathering of Allied forces in galactic history. Ships from 47 different species floated in the void around the Prometheus Nebula, their designs as varied as the civilizations that built them. Sleek Altarian cruisers hung alongside the crystalline constructs of the Velnari, while the bioships of the Zephyrians pulsed with organic light. And somewhere in the nebula, the human fleet was approaching. "Contact on the edge of sensor range," announced Veltar. "Multiple signatures emerging from hyperspace." "Put it on the main display," ordered the Admiral. The holographic screen flickered to life, showing the swirling gases of the nebula. At first, there was nothing. Then, like ghosts materializing from the cosmic fog, they appeared. The human ships were wrong. That was the first thought that crossed Zexai's mind. After millennia of studying ship design, of understanding the mathematical perfection that governed spacecraft construction, the human vessels looked like they had been assembled by madmen. Where other species built ships with smooth, efficient curves, human vessels were angular and brutal. They bristled with weapons that seemed to have been bolted on wherever there was space. Some ships appeared to be multiple vessels welded together. Others looked like they had been built in shipyards and then modified in back-alley workshops. "By the ancestors," whispered Veltar. "How many of them are there?" The Admiral was wondering the same thing. The sensors were having trouble getting an accurate count. The human ships seemed to be using some kind of stealth technology, or perhaps their hulls were designed to confuse targeting systems. Ships would appear on sensors, disappear, then reappear somewhere else. "Sir, I'm reading at least 4,000 vessels," reported the sensor operator. "But the count keeps changing. Some of these signatures are unusual." "Unusual how?" "Well, some appear to be modified cargo haulers. Others look like passenger liners with weapons grafted onto them. And there's a group of ships that don't match any known design in our databases." A new voice crackled over the communications array. It was rough, unpolished, speaking in the human language of English with a distinct accent that the universal translator struggled with. "Galactic Council Fleet, this is Admiral Sarah Chun of the United Earth Space Navy. Sorry we're late to the party. Had to stop and pick up a few friends along the way." The hologram of a human female appeared on the bridge. She looked young by human standards, perhaps 40 of their years, with short black hair and eyes that seemed to hold both warmth and steel. Her uniform was functional, practical, without the ornate decorations that marked high rank in most civilized militaries. "Atmidanchen, ZHZ Ponde Formali. Welcome to the rally point. I must say, your fleet is larger than expected." The human admiral smiled, and there was something unsettling about the expression. "Admiral, you ain't seen nothing yet. We brought everyone. Military, colonial defense force, merchant marine, private security corporations, and a few groups that prefer not to be officially recognized." "Private forces?" "Admiral, this is a military operation against the most dangerous enemy the galaxy has ever faced. Surely you don't expect civilian vessels to..." "Admiral Zexai," Chen interrupted, and her voice had hardened. "I've read the reports on what these Vorthack bastards have been doing. Whole planets turned to glass. Billions of innocents murdered. Children vaporized in their beds." She paused, and when she continued, her voice was quiet but deadly. "Every human with access to a ship, from a kid with a racing yacht to a grandmother with a freight hauler, volunteered for this mission. We don't leave that kind of evil unopposed." The Admiral was about to respond when his sensor operator called out urgently. "Sir, massive energy signatures approaching. It's the Vorthack fleet." The tactical display exploded with red contacts. Thousands of them, arranged in the perfect geometric formations that had become the Vorthack trademark. Each ship was identical, following the same design parameters, moving with mechanical precision. "My God," breathed one of the human officers over the comm, "there's so many of them." Admiral Chen's voice cut through the chatter. "All human units, this is Admiral Chun. You know the drill. Remember what they did to New Terra. Remember what they did to the colonies. Time to show these mechanical monsters what happens when they mess with humanity." The human fleet began to move, and Admiral Zexai realized that everything he thought he knew about space combat was about to be proven wrong. The human vessels didn't form up in neat battle lines like civilized forces. Instead, they scattered like a school of fish, each ship moving independently, chaotically. "Admiral Chun, Your formation is breaking apart. Zexhai transmitted urgently. Your ships need to maintain cohesion for defensive coverage. Formation. Chen's laugh was sharp. Admiral, we don't do formations. We do something much better. We improvise. The Vorthak fleet advanced in their customary wall formation, a massive rectangular block of firepower designed to overwhelm any opposition through sheer weight of numbers. It had worked against every Galactic Council force they had faced. Precise, calculated, inevitable. The humans did something no military academy had ever taught. They attacked from every direction at once. Ships dove in from above and below the galactic plane. Others emerged from behind asteroids that sensors had somehow missed. A group of what appeared to be modified civilian vessels suddenly accelerated to impossible speeds, their engines burning so hot they looked like miniature stars. How are they achieving those accelerations? Demanded Veltar. Those G-forces would turn their crews to paste. On the screen, Admiral Zexhai watched in fascination as one of the human ships, it looked like a cargo hauler that someone had strapped rockets to, collided with a Vorthak destroyer at relativistic speeds. Both ships vanished in a flash of nuclear fire. Did that human ship just conduct a suicide run? Asked his communications officer. Before anyone could answer, 3 more human vessels performed similar maneuvers, taking out capital ships 10 times their size. This is insane, muttered the admiral. They're throwing away their lives. Are they? Veltar was studying his instruments intently. Sir, look at the tactical situation. The Vorthak formation is collapsing. They're trying to adapt to the human attack pattern, but there was no pattern to adapt to. The humans weren't following any recognizable tactics. They were improvising, each ship or small group making their own decisions about how to engage the enemy. Some ships worked together in coordinated strikes. Others operated entirely alone. A few seemed to be actively competing with each other to see who could destroy the most enemy vessels. Admiral Chen's voice echoed across the fleet communications. All units, the enemy's trying to reform their line. Bravo Squadron, see that group of cruisers trying to pull back? Light 'em up. Charlie Group, those battleships think they're clever hiding behind their escorts. Show 'em they're wrong. The human fleet moved like liquid chaos, flowing around Vorthak strongpoints, striking where the enemy was weakest, vanishing when the return fire came. It was completely unlike anything in the military textbooks. And it was working. Impossible, breathed the admiral, watching his tactical display update in real time. They're actually pushing the Vorthak back. The Vorthak fleet, for the first time in their campaign of conquest, was retreating. Their perfect formations had been shattered by an enemy that refused to fight by the rules. Ships that had swept aside entire council fleets were being destroyed by what looked like armed garbage haulers and racing yachts. Admiral Zexhai, came Chen's voice over the comm. We've got them on the run, but they're probably calling for reinforcements. This is just the advance force. The real fight's coming. The admiral looked at his tactical display. The humans had just accomplished what the combined might of 47 civilizations couldn't do. They had stopped the Vorthak advance. Admiral Chun, he said slowly, what exactly are you people? The human smile was visible even through the hologram. We're the species that turned war into an art form, Admiral, and we've been practicing for a very long time. As the Vorthak fleet limped away into hyperspace, Admiral Zexhai realized that everything was about to change. The humans hadn't just won a battle. They had introduced an entirely new kind of warfare to the galaxy. A kind of warfare that didn't rely on superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but on something far more dangerous. Human ingenuity, human determination, and human refusal to accept defeat, no matter the odds. The real war was just beginning. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the aftermath of the Prometheus Nebula engagement, and, for the first time in decades, there was hope in the ancient chamber. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered to witness something unprecedented, a detailed briefing on how to defeat the Vorthak. Admiral Zexhai stood before the assembled delegates, his usual composure slightly shaken by what he had witnessed. Behind him, holographic displays showed the tactical breakdown of the battle, but the numbers seemed almost fictional. A Vorthack advance force of 3,000 ships had been routed by a human fleet that included modified civilian vessels. Honored delegates, the Admiral began, what I'm about to report challenges everything we thought we knew about space combat. The humans have proven that the Vorthack can be defeated, but their methods are unconventional. Chancellor Mordun leaned forward. Admiral, please be specific. What exactly do they do differently? They abandoned every principle of coordinated fleet action, Zexai replied. No formation flying, no unified command structure, no predetermined battle plans. Each human ship or small group acted independently, making tactical decisions based on immediate battlefield conditions. The representative from a Velnari collective, a crystalline being whose thoughts processed information at quantum speeds, interrupted. Admiral, that describes chaos, not tactics. How could such disorder defeat the Vorthack military precision? That's exactly the point, said a new voice from the chamber's entrance. Your precision is predictable. All heads turned as Admiral Sarah Chun entered the council chamber, flanked by 2 human officers. She moved with the confident stride of someone who had just accomplished the impossible. Her uniform bore scorch marks, and her left sleeve showed signs of hasty field repairs, evidence that she had been personally involved in the fighting. Admiral Chun, Chancellor Mordun said, rising from his seat, the Council owes you a debt of gratitude. Please share with us how humanity achieved this victory. She nodded to her aide, a young man whose cybernetic I suggested he was part of humanity's growing integration with artificial intelligence. Commander Rodriguez here has been analyzing Vorthack combat data for the past 72 hours. Tell them what we found, Miguel. Commander Rodriguez activated his neural interface, and holographic displays filled the air above the delegates. The Vorthack fight like a computer algorithm, he began. Every ship responds according to predetermined parameters. When they encounter Tactic A, they implement Counter Tactic B. It's efficient, it's logical, and against most opponents, it's unbeatable. But, prompted the Chancellor, but they can't adapt to tactics that don't follow logical patterns, Admiral Chin continued. When we sent a cargo hauler on a suicide run straight at their flagship, their combat computers couldn't process the action. No rational commander would sacrifice a ship for such a low-probability kill. So their defensive systems ignored it until it was too late. Representative Kethar A. of the Spiral Alliance, whose species had lost 2 entire star systems to the Vorthack, spoke up. You're describing suicide tactics. How is this sustainable? Surely you cannot win a war by throwing away your ships. Chin's expression grew somber. Representative, every one of those crews volunteered. They knew the odds. But here's what your military analysts missed. Humans don't fight just to win. We fight to make sure the other guy loses. Sometimes that requires sacrifice. She gestured to the tactical displays. The cargo hauler that rammed their flagship? It was piloted by Captain Maria Santos, whose daughter was on New Terra when the Vorthack hit. The racing yacht that took out their communications array? That was flown by a retired grandmother whose grandchildren were evacuated from the Kepler colonies. The chamber fell silent. The concept of personal motivation driving military tactics was foreign to most galactic species, who relied on professional military castes and rational strategic planning. But let me be clear, Chun continued, we didn't win through suicide runs alone. We won because we're unpredictable. Every human ship captain made their own decisions about how to engage the enemy. Some coordinated with nearby vessels. Some went lone wolf. Some formed temporary squadrons with ships they'd never served with before. Commander Rodriguez highlighted sections of the battle. Look at this engagement. 3 human destroyers and a modified cruise liner found themselves facing a Vorthack battle group. Standard tactics would have them either retreat or fight a defensive action. Instead, the cruise liner used its passenger shuttle bays to launch a swarm of small craft while the destroyers pretended to retreat, drawing the Vorthack ships into a crossfire. The cruise liner was armed? Asked Admiral Zexai. Barely, Chen admitted. But her captain was a former military officer who convinced a bunch of civilian pilots to strap mining charges to their personal craft and use them as guided missiles. Completely improvised, completely insane, and completely effective. The representative from the Altarian Republic, a species known for their rigid military discipline, looked disturbed. This level of chaos, how do you maintain command and control? How do you coordinate fleet movements? We don't, Chen said simply. Not in the way you understand it. We give our people broad objectives and trust them to figure out how to achieve them. Take out that enemy formation becomes 50 different solutions implemented by 50 different captains. She paused, studying the alien faces around her. You know what our greatest advantage was in that battle? The Vorthack had detailed files on Galactic Council military doctrines. They knew how every species fights, what tactics to expect, how to counter your strategies. But they had no data on human combat behavior because we don't have standardized combat behavior. That sounds dangerously close to anarchy, observed the Chancellor. Maybe, Chen acknowledged. But anarchy that wins beats order that loses. The session was interrupted by an urgent chime from the communications array. A hologram materialized. Admiral Vextar, the Deep Space Monitor Network, his expression grim. Chancellor, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting massive Vorthack fleet movements. They're mobilizing their entire Western Armada, over 40,000 ships. The euphoria in the chamber evaporated. 40,000 ships. The human fleet, even with reinforcements, numbered less than 5,000. Estimated time of arrival? Asked the Chancellor. 18 standard days. They're moving toward the Centauri sector. If they take those systems, they'll have a clear path to the core worlds. Admiral Chen stood silent for a moment, her tactical mind processing the implications. Then, she turned to her aide. Rodriguez, give me a link to Earth Command. Tell them we need to accelerate the schedule. What schedule? Asked Admiral Zexhai. Chen's smile was sharp and predatory. The Prometheus battle was just the opening act, Admiral. We've been planning for this war since we first learned about the Vorthack. You think what you saw was the entire human fleet? That was just our scouting force. She activated her personal communicator, and a new hologram appeared. An elderly human male in a simple military uniform, standing in what appeared to be a vast command center. Behind him, displays showed star charts covering half the galaxy. General Harrison, Chun said, we're confirmed for Phase 2. The Vorthack are bringing everything they have. The general nodded grimly. Understood, Admiral. Operation Swarm is authorized. All fleets are cleared for immediate departure. All fleets, repeated the Chancellor. General Harrison turned to address the assembled delegates. Council members, what you witnessed at Prometheus was First Fleet, our smallest combat formation. We have 9 additional fleets currently in position across the galaxy, plus specialized units that don't appear on any official roster. Admiral Zexhai felt his blood chill. How many ships are we talking about? Roughly 200,000, Harrison replied casually. Give or take a few thousand depending on how many civilian volunteers show up. Our latest recruitment drive was quite successful. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. No single species in galactic history had ever fielded a fleet of such magnitude. The combined naval forces of all council members barely reached 50,000 vessels. Ow, demanded Representative Kethare. Your industrial capacity was assessed as minimal. Your technology is centuries behind ours. How could you possibly construct such a fleet? Chun and Harrison exchanged glances. Representative Chun said slowly, you're thinking like everyone else thinks. You assume space warships have to be built in traditional shipyards using traditional materials and traditional designs. She gestured to her aide, who brought up new displays showing human ship construction. What the delegates saw defied every convention of spacecraft engineering. This is the UES Memphis, Chen explained, indicating a massive vessel that looked like it had been assembled from asteroid fragments. Former mining station converted to a mobile fortress. Crew of 12,000, armed with mining lasers recalibrated for ship-to-ship combat. The display shifted. This is the UES New Tokyo, a city ship from our outer colonies. Population 200,000, including entire military academies and training facilities. It's not just a ship, it's a mobile civilization. And this, she continued, highlighting a sleek vessel that seemed to shift and change even as they watched, is the UES Phoenix. Our first fully AI-designed warship. The artificial intelligence that created it thinks in ways that no biological mind can understand. General Harrison stepped forward. Delegates, humanity has had one significant advantage in preparing for this war. We're not bound by precedent. When we needed more ships, we didn't just build ships. We converted everything. Space stations, colony ships, cargo haulers, passenger liners, mining platforms. If it could mount weapons and life support, we turned it into a warship. But quality versus quantity, began Admiral HFY, is a false choice when you have both, Chen interrupted. Our newest ships incorporate technologies we've developed specifically for fighting the Vortex. Adaptive armor that changes configuration based on incoming fire patterns. Weapon systems that learn and evolve during combat. And command networks that allow ships to share tactical information instantaneously. Commander Rodriguez highlighted new sections of the display. We've also been studying captured Vortex technology. Their quantum communication systems, their energy shielding, their propulsion. We've reverse-engineered everything we could get our hands on and improved it. How did you obtain Vortex technology? Asked the Chancellor suspiciously. Chen's smile turned cold. We've been raiding their supply lines for months. Small operations, hit and run strikes, nothing big enough to draw attention, but enough to capture specimens and technical data. You've been conducting unauthorized military operations in galactic space. Chancellor, General Harrison's voice cut through the outrage. With respect, this is war. The Vortex weren't going to stop with the Outer Rim colonies. Our intelligence indicates they were planning to systematically exterminate every spacefaring species in the galaxy. We decided to take proactive measures. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't just responded to the Vortex threat. They had been preparing for it while the rest of the galaxy hoped it would somehow resolve itself. The 40,000 ships heading for Centauri, Admiral HFY said slowly. You're going to engage them? We're going to destroy them, Chen replied simply. Admiral, the Vortex make the same mistake everyone makes when they look at humanity. They see our technology and assume we're primitive. They count our ships and assume we're outnumbered. They analyze our tactics and assume we're chaotic. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the alien delegates. What they don't understand is that chaos is our natural state. We thrive in it. We were born from it, and we've spent the last 60 years figuring out how to weaponize it. General Harrison's image flickered as priority communications flooded his command center. Admiral Chun, all fleets report ready. Operation Swarm commences in 6 hours. Chen nodded, then turned back to the council. Delegates, in 18 days, the largest fleet in Vortex history is going to learn why humanity survived every catastrophe our homeworld could throw at us. They're going to learn why we call ourselves the most dangerous species in the galaxy. And if you fail, asked the Chancellor quietly. Admiral Chen's smile was terrifying in its confidence. Chancellor, failure is not a human concept. We don't accept defeat, we don't acknowledge surrender, and we sure as hell don't give up when innocent lives are at stake. The Vortex started this war by committing genocide. She turned toward the exit, her officers falling in beside her. We're going to finish it the same way. Admiral Thekmore of the Vortex Imperium stood in the command center of the Eternal Conquest, watching his fleet sensors with growing confusion. The massive Western Armada, 43,000 vessels representing the combined might of 17 conquered civilizations, was approaching the Centauri sector according to schedule. Intelligence indicated minimal resistance, scattered council forces, and perhaps a few human ships. The humans, Thekmore's mandibles clicked in annoyance. The species had proven surprisingly resilient at the Prometheus engagement, but that had been a minor skirmish. This time, the Imperium would apply overwhelming force. No amount of primitive cunning could stand against the mathematical certainty of superior numbers and technology. Fleet status report, he commanded. All battle groups report optimal readiness. His tactical coordinator replied. Formation integrity at maximum. Estimated engagement time, 47 minutes. Thekmore nodded with satisfaction. The Vorthak way of war was perfect in its efficiency. Every ship knew its role, every commander understood their objectives, every tactical scenario had been calculated and prepared for. It was how they had conquered half the galaxy in less than a decade. Sir, the sensor operator interrupted, I'm detecting some unusual readings at the edge of the system. Elaborate. Small craft, moving in irregular patterns. They appear to be scouts, but the signatures are inconsistent with known Council reconnaissance vessels. Thekmore studied the tactical display. Scattered dots of light moved through space in seemingly random patterns, too small to be warships, too numerous to be standard patrol craft. Ignore them. Probably civilian evacuation vessels. Focus on detecting the main Council fleet. Sir, there's something else. Long-range sensors are picking up massive gravitational distortions throughout the system. Multiple hyperspace emergence points, but the readings don't match standard fleet deployment patterns. Before Thekmore could respond, space around his Armada began to change. What had appeared to be empty void suddenly erupted with ships, thousands upon thousands of them, emerging from hyperspace at impossible angles, from behind asteroids that sensors had somehow missed, even from within gas clouds that should have been uninhabitable. Contact. Multiple contacts. I'm reading. The sensor operator's voice cracked with disbelief. Over 50,000 vessels. Thekmore stared at the display in shock. It was impossible. No civilization possessed fleets of such magnitude. The combined naval forces of the entire Galactic Council numbered barely 30,000 ships. Identification. Sir, the energy signatures are human, but that can't be correct. Our intelligence reports indicated the human fleet consisted of fewer than 10,000 vessels, most of them converted civilian craft. Transmission incoming, announced the communications officer. It's from the human fleet. The hologram that materialized in the command center showed the same human admiral from the Prometheus engagement, Shun, according to their files. But something had changed. Where before she had seemed merely confident, now she radiated predatory anticipation. Admiral Thekmore of the Vorthak Imperium, she began, her voice carrying clearly across the void between fleets. I am Admiral Sarachun of the United Earth Space Navy. You are trespassing in Galactic Council space with the intent to commit genocide. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to the rules of war. Thekmore's laugh was harsh. Human, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Your primitive vessels cannot stand against Vorthak technology. Withdraw now, and we will grant you a swift death. Chin's smile was terrifying. Admiral, you're making the same mistake every bully makes. You're counting ships instead of understanding what you're really facing. She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. You see 50,000 vessels and think you're outnumbered. What you should be seeing is 50,000 different ways to die. The transmission ended, and immediately the human fleet began to move. But they weren't forming battle lines or establishing defensive positions. Instead, they scattered like water thrown against a wall, each ship or group of ships heading in different directions at different speeds. What are they doing? Demanded Thekmore. This formation makes no tactical sense. His tactical coordinator studied the displays frantically. Sir, I can't determine their battle plan. Every ship appears to be following independent orders. There's no coherent strategy. Then they're in chaos. Perfect. All battle groups advance and engage. Destroy them piecemeal. The Vorthak Armada moved forward in their trademark wall formation, a massive rectangle of firepower designed to crush opposition through concentrated force. It had worked against every enemy they had ever faced. Precise, calculated, inevitable. The humans hit them from every direction at once. Ships dove in from above the galactic plane, accelerating to ramming speed. Others emerged from asteroid fields, their hulls disguised to match the surrounding rocks. A group of vessels that looked like cargo haulers suddenly revealed themselves to be missile platforms, launching clouds of smart weapons that moved with predatory intelligence. Impossible. Thekmore watched his neat formations disintegrate under the chaotic assault. How are they achieving coordination without centralized command? The answer came in the form of a human destroyer that materialized directly beside the Eternal Conquest, having somehow teleported past all the defensive screens. Its weapons opened fire at point-blank range, shredding the flagship's port armor before vanishing again in a flash of exotic energy. Report. Thekmore roared as alarms blared across the bridge. Hull breach on decks 40 through 60. They're using some kind of short-range teleportation technology. That's impossible. Tactical teleportation requires massive energy expenditures. Sir, more ships are appearing throughout the fleet. They're inside our formation. The tactical display showed a nightmare scenario. Human vessels were materializing at random points within the Vorthak Armada, striking hard and fast before disappearing again. Some stayed to engage in close combat, their weapons blazing with energy signatures that defied conventional physics. Others vanished as quickly as they had appeared, leaving only wreckage in their wake. How many ships are capable of this teleportation? Thekmore demanded. All of them, sir. Every human vessel appears to have some form of spatial displacement capability. Thekmore felt a chill of real fear. The humans had somehow developed technology that the Vorthak databases had no record of. No galactic species had ever achieved practical tactical teleportation. The energy requirements were simply too massive. Sir, incoming transmission. It's from one of their capital ships. A new human appeared on the holographic display, a massive man whose cybernetic implants suggested heavy integration with artificial intelligence. His uniform bore markings that indicated command rank, but, like all human military gear, it was functional rather than decorative. Vorthak, Commander, the human began, his voice deep and unnaturally steady. This is Admiral Marcus Stone of the 3rd Human Battle Fleet. I thought you might like to understand what's happening to your forces. Behind him, displays showed human ships engaged in combat throughout the Vorthak formation. But these weren't the chaotic melees that Thekmore was witnessing on his own screens. From the human perspective, every engagement was precisely coordinated, every movement calculated for maximum effect. You see, Stone continued, while your computers analyze our tactics and try to predict our movements, our ships are sharing real-time tactical data through quantum-entangled communication networks. Every human captain knows what every other human captain is seeing, thinking, and planning. Thekmore stared in horror as the implications became clear. The apparent chaos of human tactics wasn't chaos at all. It was a form of coordination beyond anything his strategists had conceived. 50,000 ships acting as a single organism while maintaining individual initiative. But that's not even our primary advantage, Stone said, and his cybernetic eye glowed with malevolent light. Our real strength is that we've been studying you. Every battle, every tactic, every strategic doctrine you've used for the past 10 years. We know how you think. To demonstrate his point, the human admiral gestured to his displays. They showed Vorthak formations reorganizing exactly as their tactical doctrine demanded, concentrating fire on the largest threats, establishing defensive perimeters around key vessels, attempting to restore formation integrity. Battle Group 7 will attempt to wheel left and concentrate fire on our apparent command vessel, Stone predicted. Battle Group 12 will try to break through what they perceive as a weak point in our formation. Battle Group 3 will initiate a fighting withdrawal to preserve their capital ships. As he spoke, the movements played out exactly as he had described. The Vorthack forces moved like clockwork, following their programming with mechanical precision, and the humans were waiting for them. Every Vorthack tactical response met prepared countermeasures. Ships that teleported to intercept retreating forces. Weapons platforms that materialized in perfect position to exploit formation weaknesses. Entire squadrons that had been invisible suddenly revealed themselves in devastating ambush positions. "You fight like machines," Stone observed, watching Vorthack ships burn across the battlefield. "Efficient, logical, predictable. But we don't fight like machines. We fight like predators." Thekmore's tactical coordinator called out in panic. "Sir, we're losing formations across the entire fleet. Battle groups 4, 7, and 15 have taken critical losses. Battle group 9 has lost all command vessels. Impossible. How many ships have we lost?" "Over 8,000 confirmed destroyed, sir. Another 12,000 reporting major damage." "And their losses?" Thekmore dreaded the answer. "Report our damage assessment of human forces." "Sir, we estimate fewer than 300 human vessels destroyed. Our targeting systems can't maintain locks on their ships. They appear, strike, and vanish before we can return effective fire." 300 out of 50,000. The greatest armada in Vorthack history was being systematically dismantled by an enemy that refused to stand still long enough to be hit. "Sir, priority transmission from High Command. They're detecting human fleet movements throughout the galaxy. Multiple battle groups engaging our forces simultaneously." Thekmore felt his world collapse. Simultaneous? How many engagements? 47 confirmed battles in progress, sir. Human forces have initiated contact with every major Vorthack fleet. All of them. The scope of human military capability became clear in that moment. While the Galactic Council had been debating strategy, while the Vorthack had been planning their final assault, humanity had positioned forces throughout known space. They weren't just fighting one battle. They were fighting every battle, everywhere, all at once. Admiral Stone's transmission continued. "Admiral Thekmore, you made a fundamental error. You assumed this was a war between your forces and the Galactic Council. But the Council never declared war on you. We did." The hologram zoomed out, showing a strategic view of the galaxy. Red markers indicated Vorthack fleets. Blue markers showed human forces. There were human forces everywhere, engaging Vorthack fleets that were scattered across thousands of light years. "This isn't the Galactic Council's war anymore," Stone said quietly. "This is humanity's war. And we've been planning it since the day we learned what you did to those innocent worlds." Thekmore stared at the display, understanding finally, dawning. The humans hadn't just responded to Vorthack aggression. They had declared total war on the Imperium. Every Vorthack fleet, every base, every strategic position was under simultaneous attack by forces that fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. "Surrender now," Stone offered, "and your surviving crews will be treated humanely. Continue fighting, and we'll demonstrate why evolution made us the apex predators of our homeworld." Thekmore looked at his tactical displays. His great armada, the pride of the Imperium, was dying around him. Ships that had conquered civilizations were being torn apart by enemies that appeared and vanished like ghosts. And somewhere across the galaxy, the same thing was happening to every other Vorthack force. For the first time in his career, Admiral Thekmore understood what it meant to be prey. Supreme Commander Vexthal of the Vorthack Imperium stood in the war room deep beneath the surface of the fortress world of Carthax, staring at strategic displays that showed the systematic collapse of his empire. Red warning indicators flashed across holographic star charts, each one representing another fleet in distress, another system under attack, another strategic position lost to the human onslaught. In 72 hours, humanity had accomplished what no force in galactic history had achieved. They had brought the Vorthack Imperium to the brink of total defeat. "Status report," Vexthal commanded, his voice betraying none of the growing panic that gnawed at his consciousness. General Crovin, his primary strategic advisor, stepped forward with data tablets that seemed to burn with bad news. Supreme Commander, we have lost contact with 41 of our 63 battle fleets. Of the remaining forces, 18 are engaged in fighting withdrawals, and only 4 remain at full operational capacity. Casualties? Preliminary estimates indicate we have lost over 300,000 vessels. Enemy losses appear to be minimal, fewer than 5,000 ships destroyed across all theaters. The numbers were staggering. In less than 3 days, humanity had destroyed nearly half of the total Vorthack military, while suffering losses of barely 1%. It defied every principle of warfare that Vexthal understood. How is this possible? Our technology is superior, our tactics proven, our commanders experienced. Sir, interrupted Admiral Jexta, recently arrived from the disaster at the Kepler engagement, the humans aren't fighting a conventional war. They've developed tactics that our combat doctrine simply cannot counter. Vexthal gestured for her to continue. They don't maintain supply lines in any traditional sense. Their ships appear capable of operating independently for extended periods. They don't defend fixed positions. They attack everywhere simultaneously. And their coordination, Jexta paused, her mandibles clicking with nervous energy. Sir, they fight as if every ship commander can read the minds of every other commander. Elaborate. At the Rigel system, I watched a human destroyer coordinate with forces over 50 light-years away in real time. They were sharing tactical information instantaneously across impossible distances. Our quantum communication networks take minutes to relay data across such ranges. Theirs appear to operate instantly. General Crovin activated new displays showing human ship movements across multiple star systems. Sir, analysis of their fleet dispositions suggests they're using some form of quantum entanglement communication network that spans the entire galaxy. Every human ship can coordinate with every other human ship regardless of distance. Vexthal studied the patterns, his strategic mind working to comprehend the implications. Are you telling me that humanity has essentially created a single organism with 50,000 bodies? That appears to be the case, sir. But it's worse than that. Each body is capable of independent action while maintaining perfect coordination with the whole. They combine the advantages of centralized command with the flexibility of independent operation. The Supreme Commander moved to the central display, watching red indicators disappear as more Vorthack fleets were destroyed. What about their ship capabilities? Our intelligence indicated human technology was primitive. Our intelligence was wrong, sir, Admiral Jexta replied grimly. Their vessels incorporate technologies we don't understand. Tactical teleportation, adaptive armor systems, weapons that appear to learn and modify their effects during combat. And their artificial intelligence integration. She activated footage from the Centauri battle, showing human ships moving with impossible coordination. Sir, many of their vessels appear to be piloted by artificial intelligences that think faster than biological minds. They can calculate and execute tactical maneuvers in microseconds. AIs. Vexthal felt a chill. The Vorthack had experimented with artificial intelligence centuries ago, but had abandoned the research after concluding that created intelligence was inherently unpredictable and, therefore, militarily unreliable. Not just AIs, sir. Human AI hybrid consciousnesses. Their pilots interface directly with quantum computers, creating minds that combine human intuition with electronic processing speed. They think like humans, but react like machines. The implications were terrifying. An enemy that combined organic creativity with electronic precision, unified by instantaneous communication across galactic distances, equipped with technology that adapted in real time to changing battlefield conditions. What about their numbers? Surely they cannot maintain this level of operation indefinitely. General Crovin's expression grew even grimmer. Sir, our latest intelligence estimates suggest the human fleet may number over 200,000 vessels. But that's not the worst part. They appear to be growing. Growing. Sir, Humans are converting everything that can mount weapons into warships. Cargo haulers, passenger liners, mining platforms, even space stations. Our agents report that entire human colonies are joining their fleet as mobile battle platforms. Vexthal stared at the displays in disbelief. They're turning their entire civilization into a military force. It appears so, sir. And they're not just converting existing vessels. Intelligence indicates they're manufacturing new ships at a rate that defies our understanding of industrial capacity. Some appear to be constructed by self-replicating automated systems. The strategic picture was becoming clear, and it was nightmarish. Humanity wasn't just fighting a war. They had transformed their entire species into a weapon of galactic proportions. Every human was a potential combatant, every human vessel a potential warship, every human facility a potential weapons factory. Sir, Admiral Jexta continued, there's something else. The humans aren't just destroying our fleets. They're capturing them. Capturing? Yes, sir. Reports from across the battle zones indicate that when Vorthack vessels are disabled, but not destroyed, human forces board them. They're taking prisoners, seizing technology, interrogating survivors. Vexthal's mandibles clicked ominously. For what purpose? We believe they're learning, sir. Every engagement provides them with more data about our tactics, technology, and capabilities. They're treating this war as a massive intelligence-gathering operation. The Supreme Commander moved to a secure terminal and accessed the most classified Vorthack military databases. What he saw there confirmed his worst fears. Battle reports from across the galaxy showed a disturbing pattern. Human tactics were evolving in real time. Techniques that had proven effective against early Vorthack responses were being modified and improved with each engagement. They're not just fighting us, he realized aloud. They're studying us, learning from us, adapting to us. Yes, sir. And they're sharing that knowledge instantly across their entire fleet network. Every lesson learned by one human ship becomes available to all human ships within minutes. The true scope of human capability began to dawn on Vexthal. This wasn't a military engagement in any conventional sense. It was a species-wide learning exercise in which humanity was using the Vorthack Imperium as training material. Sir, incoming priority transmission from the human fleet, announced the communications officer. On screen, the hologram that materialized showed a human unlike any they had encountered before. Where previous human commanders had displayed confidence or tactical brilliance, this one radiated something far more unsettling: absolute certainty. She appeared young even by human standards, but her eyes held depths that suggested vast experience. Supreme Commander Vexthal, she began, her voice carrying an eerie calm. I am Admiral Lisa Park of the Human Strategic Command. I believe it's time we had a conversation. Admiral Park, Vexthal replied, drawing on decades of diplomatic training to maintain composure. I assume you're contacting me to discuss terms of surrender. The human's laugh was gentle, which somehow made it more terrifying than aggressive laughter would have been. Commander, you misunderstand the situation. We're not here to accept your surrender. We're here to offer you a choice. Explain. The Vorthack Imperium as a military force has effectively ceased to exist. Our forces have destroyed or captured 80% of your fleet assets. Your remaining forces are scattered and isolated. Your supply networks have been severed. Your command and control systems are compromised. She paused, letting the implications sink in. The war is over. What remains is determining what happens next. Admiral Park gestured, and new displays appeared showing the current state of Vorthack space. What Vexthal saw was devastating. Human forces controlled every major hyperspace route, every strategic resource, every communication hub. The Imperium had been systematically dissected. Your first choice, Park continued, is continued resistance. If you choose this path, we will complete the systematic destruction of every Vorthack military asset in the galaxy. Your species will survive, but as a non-spacefaring civilization confined to your homeworld under permanent quarantine. And the alternative? Cooperation. Full disclosure of Vorthack military technology, complete records of your expansion and conquest, assistance in locating and freeing enslaved populations from conquered worlds. In exchange, your surviving military personnel will be treated as prisoners of war under Galactic Council protocols, and your species will be permitted to maintain limited spaceflight capability under Council oversight. Vexthal studied the human commander. And if we refuse both options? Admiral Park's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes grew cold. Commander, we've been studying your species for months. We understand your biology, your psychology, your social structures. We know about the neurocontrol implants you use to maintain loyalty. We know about the genetic modifications that make your soldiers more aggressive. We know about the conditioning programs that eliminate empathy in your command cast. She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. If you choose the path of total resistance, we will not simply defeat you. We will ensure that your species never again poses a threat to anyone. We have the technology to rewrite your genetic code, to modify your neural structures, to transform your entire race into something harmless. The threat was delivered in the same calm tone as the surrender terms, which made it infinitely more chilling. The humans weren't emotional about this war. They were clinical, systematic, thorough. You would commit genocide? Vexthal asked. Not genocide, Commander. Evolution. We would help your species evolve beyond its need for conquest and violence. Your people would survive, but as something better than what they are now. General Crovin stepped forward. You cannot be serious. The technological requirements for species-wide genetic modification are beyond any known science. Admiral Park smiled, and for the first time, she showed something other than calm determination. She showed pride. General, 3 days ago you thought tactical teleportation was beyond known science. You thought instantaneous galactic communication was impossible. You thought a single species couldn't field a fleet of 200,000 vessels. She gestured to her displays, which showed real-time feeds from across the galaxy. Human fleets moved through space like schools of metallic fish, coordinated beyond anything the Vorthack had imagined possible. We are humanity, Commander. We survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, and our own tendency towards self-destruction. We turned a hostile world into a garden and then reached for the stars. We created intelligence in machines and made peace with it. We unified a fractured species and taught ourselves to think as one mind with billions of bodies. Her expression grew serious again. The question isn't whether we can reshape your species, Commander. The question is whether we'll need to. The choice is yours, but the deadline is not negotiable. You have 24 hours to decide. The transmission ended, leaving Vexthal alone with his advisors and the weight of an impossible decision. Around him, the remaining command staff waited for orders that could determine the fate of their entire civilization. The Supreme Commander looked at the strategic displays one more time, seeing the complete scope of human victory. In 72 hours, a species that had been dismissed as primitive had demonstrated military capabilities beyond anything in recorded galactic history. And they were offering mercy to the empire that had tried to exterminate them. For the first time in his career, Vexthal understood that he was facing something unprecedented in the galaxy, a species that had evolved beyond the need for revenge. The humans fought not for conquest or glory, but for the simple principle that genocide was unacceptable, and they were willing to go to any length to ensure it never happened again. 6 months after what historians would later call the War of Human Ascendancy, Admiral Sarachin stood on the observation deck of the UES Unity, watching construction crews work on what had once been the Vorthack fortress world of Carthax, where massive military installations had once dominated the landscape. New structures were rising: medical facilities, educational centers, research institutes. The transformation was symbolic of something larger happening across the galaxy. "Admiral," came a voice behind her. Chin turned to see Admiral Zexhai of the Galactic Council approaching, his usual formal military bearing softened by something that might have been relief. The council session has concluded. I thought you'd want to know the results. Let me guess, Chen replied, not taking her eyes off the construction work below. Unanimous approval for the reconstruction accords? Unanimous, Zexhai confirmed, though I think some representatives are still processing what they've witnessed. The idea that a war of this magnitude could end not with conquest or revenge, but with rehabilitation, it challenges fundamental assumptions about the nature of conflict. Chen finally turned from the window, her expression thoughtful. Admiral, can I ask you something? What did you think when you first saw the human fleet at Prometheus? Zexhai considered the question carefully. Honestly, I thought you were either insane or suicidal. Your tactics appear to be pure chaos. And now? Now I understand that what I perceived as chaos was actually a form of order beyond my comprehension. You weren't just fighting a battle. You were conducting a test. Chen nodded approvingly. The Prometheus engagement wasn't about defeating that Vorthack force. It was about gathering data. Every human ship was equipped with sensors specifically designed to analyze Vorthack technology, tactics, and decision-making patterns. We used the battle to create detailed psychological and technological profiles, which you then shared across your entire fleet network, Zexhai concluded. By the time the main engagement began, every human commander knew exactly how the Vorthack would respond to any given stimulus. It goes deeper than that, Chen continued, leading Zexhai toward the command center. We didn't just learn their tactics, we learned their limitations. The Vorthack fought like a computer program, following decision trees and predetermined responses. Once we mapped those responses, countering them became a matter of systematic execution. They entered the command center, where displays showed the current state of former Vorthack space. What had once been an empire of conquest was now a network of rehabilitation centers, research stations, and cultural exchange facilities. Former Vorthack worlds were being transformed into laboratories for studying the intersection of technology and consciousness. The real question, Chen said, was never whether we could defeat them militarily. The question was what we would do afterward. And that's where humanity's real advantage became clear. Admiral Zexhai studied the displays, noting the careful integration of human, Vorthack, and Galactic Council personnel working together on various projects. Most species would have demanded tribute or territory. Some would have simply exterminated a threat of that magnitude, which is exactly why we couldn't allow any other species to handle the Vorthack response, Chen explained. Admiral, the galaxy has been locked in cycles of conquest and revenge for millennia. Every empire that rose did so by defeating the previous empire, which created resentment, which led to rebellion, which led to new empires. The pattern was endless. She activated a holographic display showing galactic history, civilizations rising and falling in predictable cycles. Humanity broke that cycle not through superior firepower, but through superior understanding. We didn't just study Vorthack military doctrine. We studied their psychology, their sociology, their fundamental nature as a species. And what did you discover? That they weren't naturally aggressive, Chen said, her voice carrying a note of sadness. The Vorthack were artificially modified to be conquerors. Genetic engineering, neural conditioning, chemical treatments. Their entire species had been transformed into a biological weapon by their own leadership centuries ago. The revelation struck Zexhai like a physical blow. They were victims, both victims and perpetrators, Chen clarified, which made the question of justice incredibly complex. How do you punish a species for crimes they were literally programmed to commit? How do you ensure they never commit those crimes again without becoming monsters yourself? Admiral Zexhai began to understand the true scope of what humanity had accomplished. The rehabilitation program. You're reversing the conditioning. More than that, Chen said, gesturing to new displays showing Vorthack colonies. We're giving them a choice. Every Vorthack individual is being offered the opportunity to have their artificial modifications removed the genetic changes, the neural implants, the chemical dependencies. They can choose to return to what their species was before it was weaponized. And if they refuse, they're free to maintain their current state, but under permanent monitoring. No one is being forced to change, but no one is being allowed to harm others. Chun paused, watching feeds from rehabilitation centers where former Vorthack soldiers were learning to function without their aggressive conditioning. It's not a perfect solution, but it's a humane one. The conversation was interrupted by a priority communication signal. The hologram that materialized showed General Harrison from Earth, his expression grave but satisfied. Admiral Chun, Admiral HFY, Harrison began. I thought you'd want to see this. New displays activated, showing a gathering on the former Vorthack homeworld. Thousands of Vorthack civilians, no longer bound by military conditioning, were participating in something unprecedented, a truth and reconciliation ceremony. Former victims of Vorthack conquest stood alongside former Vorthack soldiers, sharing stories and working toward mutual understanding. The first voluntary testimony sessions, Harrison explained. Vorthack leaders providing detailed accounts of their expansion, helping us locate imprisoned populations and hidden research facilities. More importantly, they're beginning to understand what they did and why it was wrong. Admiral HFY watched in amazement as former enemies worked together to heal the wounds of war. How did you know this would work? We didn't, Chen admitted, but we had to try. The alternative was perpetual war or genocide, and neither was acceptable to humanity. General Harrison's image shifted to show other scenes from across former Vorthack space. The results have exceeded our most optimistic projections. Voluntary compliance with rehabilitation is running at 93%. Former Vorthack scientists are sharing technology that will advance galactic medicine by centuries. And their military leaders are providing intelligence that's helping us locate other potential threats. Other threats? HFY asked. The Vorthack weren't the only artificially aggressive species in the galaxy, Chen explained. Our research has identified at least 3 other civilizations that show signs of similar modification. Ancient empires that may have used the same techniques to create soldier species. She activated a star chart showing regions of space marked with warning indicators. The galaxy has a history of creating monsters, Admiral. Species modified to be perfect warriors, perfect conquerors, perfect killers. The Vorthack were just the most recent example, and humanity intends to address all of them. Humanity intends to end the cycle, Chun said firmly. No more artificially created aggressive species. No more biological weapons disguised as civilizations. No more programming entire populations to be instruments of war. General Harrison nodded approvingly. The Galactic Council has approved the formation of a new peacekeeping force. Joint Human Council units tasked with identifying and rehabilitating artificially aggressive species. It's a long-term commitment, but necessary. Admiral HFY felt the weight of galactic history shifting. You're talking about rewriting the fundamental nature of interstellar conflict. We're talking about evolution, Chen corrected. The galaxy has been trapped in primitive cycles of violence for millions of years. It's time to grow beyond that. She moved to the observation window again, looking out at the transformed world below. Admiral, when humans first achieved spaceflight, we carried our history of warfare with us. We thought conflict was inevitable, that violence was natural, that some species were inherently aggressive. But the more we learned about the galaxy, the more we realized that most conflicts were artificial, created by circumstances, conditioning, or external manipulation. The Vorthack taught you this. The Vorthack confirmed it. A species turned into weapons by their own leaders, then used to terrorize the galaxy. It's a pattern that repeats throughout history. Artificial scarcity, manufactured conflicts, programmed hatred. Chen's reflection in the window showed determination mixed with sadness. But patterns can be broken. General Harrison's transmission continued. Admiral Chun, We've received confirmation from the outer reconnaissance fleets. The rehabilitation protocols are being accepted by other species as well. The Krell Confederacy has requested assistance in removing their combat conditioning. The SEK-TAR hegemony wants to discuss voluntary disarmament. Word is spreading, Zexhai observed. Other aggressive species are seeing what happened to the Vorthack and choosing change over confrontation. It's more than that, Chen said. They're seeing that change is possible. For the first time in galactic history, there's an alternative to the cycle of conquest and revenge. She turned from the window, her expression showing the weight of command mixed with hope for the future. Admiral Zexhai, humanity didn't win the war against the Vorthack through superior firepower or better tactics. We won because we refused to accept that war was inevitable. We proved that even the most aggressive species could be helped to find a better path. And now we help the galaxy grow beyond its need for artificial conflict. We identify the sources of manufactured aggression. We offer rehabilitation to the victims of biological warfare. We create systems that prevent the rise of new militarized species. Admiral Zexhai studied the displays showing peaceful cooperation between former enemies. It's an ambitious goal. It's a necessary goal, Chen replied. Admiral, humanity spent most of its history fighting wars against itself. We nearly destroyed our own species multiple times. We understand the cost of endless conflict, and we refuse to allow the galaxy to pay that same price. The communication from General Harrison concluded with images from across human space. Not military installations or weapons factories, but schools, research centers, cultural exchanges. Humanity was transforming its vast military machine into an equally vast peacekeeping and rehabilitation apparatus. The war is over, Chun said finally. But the peace is just beginning, and that peace will require as much dedication, innovation, and courage as the war did. Admiral Zexhai looked out at the transformed world below, watching former enemies work together to build something better. Admiral Chun, I have one final question. How did humanity know this would work? How did you know that offering rehabilitation instead of revenge would be accepted? Chun smiled, and for the first time since he had known her, the expression held no trace of the predatory confidence that had made her such a formidable military commander. Instead, it showed something far more powerful: hope. Admiral, we didn't know. We had to trust that most beings, when given the choice between hatred and healing, would choose healing. That most species, when shown a path away from conflict, would take it. That the galaxy was ready to evolve beyond its history of violence. She paused, watching ships from dozens of species working together in the space above the planet. It turns out we were right. The galaxy was just waiting for someone to offer a different choice.